Oakland Johnston has a point, you know. Being pre-apologetic is an extremely weak position to be in, isn't it? For something you know nothing about. You only think you know because of what someone told you. Why do you have to apologise? See, we've got this pre-apologetic problem in Australia. It's been played on us all over the place. We're all pre-apologetic for shit we know nothing about and we weren't there for. We're pre-apologetic to the nation's second people. You know, I don't even acknowledge the nation's first people. No one knows who they are. No one knows who they are. So I'll just call them the nation's second people. At the acknowledgement speeches from now on, I'm going to turn my back to it. I'm not acknowledging shit other than reality, other than truth, other than the here and the now. While we're all running around living in the past, we're not exactly looking at the here and now, are we? Let alone the future. Why do I have to be pre-apologetic for something that happened centuries ago? I'm not going to be. Nor should you be. Nor should anyone be. It's like that nasty word slavery. It's a bastardised word, and we messed it up. Yeah, well, not we. We weren't there. Kind of like Doug Stanhope says when people say, oh, we beat the Germans and we did this and we... No, I don't think we did anything. I think we should just shut the F up and sit here and finish our Jägermeisters. We weren't even alive. Taking credit for things we didn't do and feeling guilty for things that we know nothing about. How pathetic. The only guilt I feel is I feel ashamed of being... I feel ashamed of being stuck under the label of what our government's putting on us. The wrong side of history. That label. Do I feel ashamed of white privilege? No. There's no such thing. Do I feel the guilt of what white people done to black people? No. I feel liberated to know that it was all a load of shit. How is it a load of shit? The word slavery is a load of shit. Yeah, I'm going to trigger some people with this one. You see, slaves existed everywhere. But they were honoured and they were treated as equals. A slave is no different than an employee, than a housekeeper and a cleaner and a maid at a hotel. No different. It was an employment. It was a job. As part everywhere else in the world. But when it come to the Europeans, who, need I remind America, is where you came from before you took land from the Polynesians. Okay, if you want to go back to there, let's all go back to where we come from, which leaves most of us flailing around halfway between countries in the fucking ocean. This is how pathetic it is. We're all meant to feel guilt for fucking where we came from. Hello? You could cut me in half and have half here and another half in Wales, but then you'd have to remove a little piece of me in Wales, maybe a leg and 3 fingers, and send that over to somewhere in Jerusalem somewhere. And while we're at it, let's send a hand to Canada, because I've got Aboriginal, European, or British European, Jewish and Canadian blood. Yeah, that's where the Rogers comes from. Who'd have thunk I'd be related to Kenny? Right? Yeah, for all you Rogerses around here that are part of my family around here, we're actually somewhere way down there, indirectly, we're related to Kenny. Probably prick relations, but still. You see how it's just all fucking retarded. Why are we feeling guilt for anything? So while we're all running around changing the names of oceans and countries and cities, and why don't we just change the name of Australia to the lunatic asylum, because it's full of asylum seekers. The madhouse, run by the fucking crazy train in Canberra. No, I'm not going to be pre-apologetic to anyone for anything. Yes, it's an AI voice, but it's not the point.
The magic system of Zionism. If I spoke critically of something abusive that India was doing in Kashmir, would you expect me to be accused of an anti-Hindu hate crime? If you criticized an Indian military operation, would you have to preface it with, "I don't hate Hindus or their religion, and I'm not the slightest bit Hindu-phobic"? If there was worldwide opposition to something that Indian military forces were doing, would you expect Western governments to start frantically churning out laws to ban that opposition because it was making members of the Hindu community feel unsafe? Would it ever, in your wildest imaginings, occur to you that a criticism of the violent actions of the government of India could in any way be interpreted as an attack on the Hindu faith and the membership of that religion? You can probably see where I'm going with this. You don't expect to see criticisms of the state of India framed as an attack on its majority religion because people in your society haven't been conditioned to have that expectation. But we have been conditioned to have that expectation about Israel. The association between anti-Semitism and criticism of the state of Israel isn't natural. It's not something that would organically occur to an untrained mind. If a man who'd never heard of Israel or Palestine was shown footage of the genocide in Gaza, he would reflexively recoil in horror and say what he was looking at was a bad thing. If somebody then ran up to him and explained to him that what he just said was a hateful act of religious persecution, he would be very surprised and confused, because he hadn't been indoctrinated into making that association, in the same way you haven't been indoctrinated into associating criticism of the Indian government with an attack on the religion of Hinduism. It's a completely counterintuitive association. There's nothing about it that you could find your way into through your own observation and reasoning. It's something you'd need to be taught by others. You need it to be explained to you. That's the literal definition of the Hebrew word haspera. It means explaining. Israel and its supporters have spent decades explaining to the world that criticism of the state of Israel is actually a terrible hate crime against Jews and their religion, because otherwise it would never occur to a normal person that this is the case. It's actually astonishingly impressive. The political ideology of support for this tiny apartheid state has been so effective at explaining to the world what thoughts they should think about it that those efforts touch all our lives. It's so effective that you could be at a social gathering all the way across the sea in the United States, and, unless you are very familiar with the people around you, if the subject of Israel comes up, you'll immediately understand that you could be in for a very uncomfortable evening. It's stunning how much influence this ideology has throughout our society's culture and institutions. It's almost magical. There was a segment in last year's Louis Theroux documentary, The Settlers, that stuck with me, where Israeli settler leader Daniela Weiss refers to Zionism as a magic system. Weiss told Theroux, "Jewish settlements in Gaza is a very difficult step that demands a lot of work. You have to influence the leftists, the government, the nations of the world, using the magic system, Zionism." It isn't surprising to learn that Weiss views her operations as a kind of magic. On paper, she and her ilk shouldn't be able to do what they do. forcefully dropping a foreign ethno-state on top of a pre-existing civilization and violently hammering it into place against every organic impulse of the region is freakish enough. But then convincing the rest of the world to support this, to the point that it actually affects our interpersonal relationships and interactions on the other side of the planet? It shouldn't work. But it does. I don't really know what magic is, but it makes sense that some Zionists would see it this way. Because from the outside looking in, all that mass-scale psychological manipulation does kind of look like an inexplicable sort of wizardry. Luckily, the magic seems to be wearing off. The old tricks just aren't working anymore. Calling someone who criticizes Israel an anti-Semite is widely recognized for the fraudulent manipulation that it is. Pro-Palestine politicians are winning elections despite highly coordinated smear campaigns saying their candidacy makes Jews feel unsafe. Everyone knows Israel lies about everything all the time. Trust in the media is at an all-time low, while awareness of the pro-Israel bias of the mainstream press is at an all-time high. People are still showing up for protests and pro-Palestine events. The public is turning against Israel in unprecedented numbers. Nobody's buying the old song and dance anymore. Maybe the people are finding a little magic of their own.
Well, that was brilliant.
With Woo. Gain insights into how you train.
That was brilliant. I'm going to sharpen the blades on my lawnmower and give me front lawn another buzz cut, because, like, you know, I must be a fussy bastard. Look at my lawn. What else is... I just, I don't know. I like to have something pretty to look at outside. And say pretty, you know. I have my little quarter acre of heaven, the weedy backyard with the veggie patch and the chickens, and a nice front yard to come home to every day. Makes it so much more pleasant. That's my hands doing God's work, not the devil's work.